It was supposed to be just another awards night in Los Angeles. Red carpet, flashing cameras, political digs wrapped in jokes. Nothing unusual until Karoline Levitt showed up wearing a sleek dark green gown and her signature silver cross. Karoline entered with her head high, but she wasn't alone. Walking beside her was her husband, Daniel Whitmore, a former Marine, quiet, steady, not a celebrity, but the kind of man who turned heads by presence alone. The press immediately noticed him. "Who's that with Karoline? Is that her security?" "No, that's her husband. A vet, I think." Inside the ballroom, everyone was buzzing. Then the lights dimmed, and out walked Tom Cruise, the night's host, suave, charming, smiling, but with an edge that had cut plenty before. "Ladies and gentlemen," he beamed, "we've got senators, stars, and even some people who believe the earth is flat." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "And here comes Karoline Levitt, America's favorite fire starter, bringing along a husband who looks like he just wandered off a Marine recruitment poster." The crowd chuckled. Karoline's smile didn't move, but her husband's jaw tensed. Tom wasn't done. "Honestly, I thought that was her bodyguard until I saw the wedding ring. She married him." "What? Was Jason Bourne busy?" Louder laughter now. Karoline's face remained calm but icy. Daniel leaned in quietly. "You okay?" She nodded. "I'm fine." But he's not. The camera panned past their table. Karoline gently placed her napkin on the table, stood up, and walked backstage with Daniel. Tom Cruise, unaware of what he'd just triggered, continued hosting. But something had shifted. Something was coming. The mic drop moment. Tom had just wrapped up his fourth joke about politics when the room lights dimmed suddenly. He paused, confused. Then a new spotlight snapped on. Stage left. From the shadows emerged Karoline Levitt. She wasn't scheduled to speak. She hadn't been invited on stage, but here she was, calm, confident, cutting through the silence in stilettos. Even Tom had to blink. Karoline, what are you doing?" She took the second microphone without looking at him and turned to the audience. "Since Tom brought me into the conversation, I figured I should respond." Nervous laughter spread through the crowd. "You know, it's easy to stand up here and mock people who don't live in your world. But Tom didn't just mock me. He mocked my husband, a man who spent 10 years in the Marines, a man who faced real danger, not stunts and cameras." The room tensed. Even the A-listers stopped sipping champagne. Karoline continued. "When I walked in here tonight, I knew I wasn't your kind of guest. I don't come from Hollywood. I come from service, from discipline, from people who believe respect isn't a punchline." She glanced briefly at Tom, whose smile had faded completely. "And as for the joke, if you're going to make fun of my husband, at least try to be original. Comparing him to Jason Bourne? That's cute. But trust me, Jason Bourne would have lost to this man in a second." That got a reaction. Cheers, whistles, even a few standing ovations from veterans in the back rows. Karoline let the applause settle, then dropped the final line. "Tom, I don't need to be a movie star to command a stage. I just need to tell the truth." With that, she turned, walked off, and left the spotlight flickering behind her. Backstage. Reactions. Backstage, Daniel waited by the curtain. "That was something," he said quietly. Karoline smiled. That was just the beginning. Meanwhile, Tom Cruise paced like a lion in a shrinking cage. Producers whispered in his earpiece, "Let it go. Tom, just move on with the script." But he wasn't wired that way. Karoline's impromptu speech had landed like a right hook. Now cameras were rolling, and social media was already ablaze. Clips of her quote, "I don't need to be a movie star to command a stage," were spreading like wildfire. Tom didn't care. He wanted to win. He walked back out, adjusted his cuffs, and forced a grin. "Well, I guess I just got a lecture from the First Lady of Fox News." Some laughed awkwardly. Others just watched. But hey, let's be honest. If I had $1 for every time a conservative told me they were offended, I'd be richer than I already am. A few claps, mostly tension. Tom pushed harder. Look, I respect the troops, but let's not confuse being married to a Marine with knowing everything about leadership. There's a difference between experience and ego. Oof. The air went heavy. Even his own table froze, not because it was bold, but because it was dumb. Daniel steps up. Backstage, Daniel had been quiet, still was, but now he stepped forward. "You good with me walking in there?" he asked Karoline. She didn't answer. She just stepped aside. Seconds later, the double doors to the stage creaked open again. This time, it wasn't Karoline. It was him, Daniel Whitmore, 6'2". Broad shoulders, calm fury in every step. He walked straight down the center aisle. No rush, no apology, just presence. The audience turned in slow motion. Tom Cruise looked up and blinked. "Can I say something?" Daniel asked, his voice steady. The mic tech, shocked, just handed him a live microphone. Daniel turned to the crowd, then calmly faced Tom. "You can joke all you want, but the moment you questioned her leadership, you made it personal. She earned her voice. You just act like you deserve yours." Boom, one sentence, one reaction. The entire front row gasped. Tom was speechless. Daniel nodded once, handed the mic back, and walked out. Not another word, but the message shook the walls. The aftermath. By the time the awards show cut to commercial, Twitter, now X, was already on fire. Hashtags like "Issue Daniel did that," "Marine McDrop," and "Sit Down Tom" were trending nationally. Clips of Daniel's calm walk to the stage and his one-liner, "She earned her voice. You just act like you deserve yours," had been posted, reposted, slowed down, remixed. A former Marine speaking not in anger, but in truth, and people listened. Fox News ran a segment within the hour. Caroline Leavitt's husband shocks Hollywood with silent strength. But it wasn't just conservative outlets. CNN's headline read, "Veteran confronts Tom Cruise, you just act like you deserve it." Even late-night hosts like Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel, normally allies of Cruise, hesitated to defend him. Why? Because it didn't look like a joke anymore. It looked like a man punching down and a couple standing up. The next morning. Caroline's inbox exploded. Supporters, veterans groups, college students, journalists. Some had never written her before, but they all said the same thing. You didn't have to yell, you didn't have to fight dirty. You brought a man of honor to a room of ego, and the truth spoke for itself. Daniel didn't even check his phone. He was in the kitchen brewing coffee like it was just another morning. Caroline, still in her robe, looked over. "You know, you kind of blew up the internet last night." Daniel smirked. "I didn't do anything, but say the truth." She raised an eyebrow. "That's exactly why it worked." Tom's downfall. Back in Los Angeles, Tom Cruise sat in his home office watching it all unfold. Every clip, every reaction. His name wasn't trending for a movie. He was trending for being put in his place. "That man is dangerous," he muttered. He wasn't talking about Daniel's military background. He was talking about influence. Tom Cruise's team scrambled. A full-blown crisis had erupted overnight. Interns combed social media, flagging the worst clips. Publicists were on the phone with Vanity Fair and GQ, pitching exclusive interviews to steer the narrative. "We can frame it as humor gone wrong," one aide suggested, "or call it a misunderstanding," another offered. Tom stared at them all. "We don't apologize." The room fell silent, but deep down Tom knew he was losing something more valuable than screen. Time, control. The legal threat. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Caroline was at the press podium. She didn't bring up the awards show or mention Tom Cruise, but the press did. A CNN reporter raised her hand. "Ms. Levitt, any comment on last night's viral moment?" Caroline smiled, cool and collected. "I think what my husband said spoke louder than anything I could have added. He wasn't defending me. He was defending respect." Boom. That line alone hit 1 million views by noon. Then came the invites. Fox News, CBS Morning, even the Today Show. They all wanted Caroline and Daniel together. America had seen couples fight for attention, but this couple, they were fighting for each other. Backstage at Fox, Caroline turned to Daniel before the cameras rolled. "You sure about this?" He shrugged. "Not a fan of the spotlight, but if it helps shut down guys like Cruise, count me in." That night, when the interview aired and Daniel said, it wasn't about defending her honor, it was about reminding people that not everyone with a mic deserves to use it. Twitter lit up again. People called them the modern political power couple, a fusion of toughness and calm, belief and backbone. And Tom? He watched it all from a hotel room, expression tight. He picked up his phone and finally called his lawyer. The Gibson 19 file. The manila envelope arrived by courier, no label, no logo, just waiting. Caroline opened it at her White House press office desk, Daniel sitting nearby with coffee in hand. Inside was a thick legal document labeled at the top, "Notice of Defamation Concern, Thomas Cruise vs. Levitt and Whitmore." It was official. Tom Cruise had threatened to sue. The language was slick but sharp. The comments made by Ms. Levitt and Mr. Whitmore have caused reputational damage. Failure to issue a public apology may result in legal action. Caroline let out a slow breath and smiled, not with fear, but with focus. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "He's really going there?" "Yeah," she replied. "He picked the wrong opponent." That night, Caroline didn't go on TV. She didn't post a fiery tweet. Instead, she opened an old encrypted file folder saved on a flash drive labeled Gibson 19. She plugged it into her laptop and typed in a 10-digit password. Daniel watched from across the room. "You're opening that?" Caroline nodded. "If Tom wants a public war, I'll give him a public record." Inside were emails, screenshots, a timeline. Back in 2019, during a military charity event in Los Angeles, Tom Cruise had backed out of a sponsorship deal last minute after making strong promises to veterans. Caroline, then a junior congressional aide, had witnessed it and documented it quietly. At the time, it wasn't her battle to fight. "But now, this isn't about revenge," she whispered. "It's about pattern. He humiliates people, dismisses service, then hides behind image." By morning, Caroline had her team draft a blistering statement. "We have received Tom Cruise's legal threat. As someone who documents truth for a living, I am not intimidated by celebrity lawsuits, but I am very interested in releasing full records regarding Mr. Cruise's behavior toward military communities. If he would like a public discussion, I am happy to schedule one, in court or on camera." The internet detonated. Conservative circles celebrated. Moderates leaned in. Even liberal-leaning vets shared stories. "I was there in 19, Caroline. Isn't lying. He ghosted our charity the day of the event. We were humiliated." And Tom, he was in a crisis room, phone in one hand, PR manager in the other. "What the hell does she have?" he barked. No one answered, because no one knew how far Caroline Levitt was willing to go. The final showdown. The set was darker than usual. Spotlights trained on a single seat in the center of the Fox News primetime studio. A silver microphone, a single sheet of paper under Caroline Levitt's hand. The flash drive rested silently beside it, marked in black ink, Gibson 19. Host Tucker Green introduced her with barely concealed anticipation. Tonight, we welcome White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, not just for commentary, but to respond to a lawsuit threat by actor Tom Cruise. The camera cut to Karoline. No smile, no bravado, just clarity. I was threatened this week legally by a man who mocked my husband's service and then couldn't handle the public response. That man was Tom Cruise. The room went silent. But I've learned something working in Washington. People who hide behind power rarely expect to be confronted with truth. She slid the flash drive forward. This file contains email exchanges, memos, and direct communications from 2019 documenting Tom Cruise's sudden withdrawal from a veterans charity event, leaving over 100 service members without promised funding or his appearance. This was not a scheduling conflict, it was a decision, one he never apologized for. Tucker blinked. Even he didn't know she was going this far. Karoline turned to the camera, millions watching. You sued me, Mr. Cruise, claiming I harmed your reputation. But what I have here isn't hearsay. It's your own words. So if we're going to court, I'll be bringing this. But if you'd rather drop the lawsuit, I'm willing to consider a public apology to the veterans you ghosted. Online, chaos ignited like a second lightning strike. Hashtags returned. Karoline strikes back. Honor over Hollywood. Veterans posted photos from the 2019 event. Half-empty chairs, confused families. One wrote, "My dad waited all day for Cruise. We were told he'd show." CNN couldn't ignore it, neither could NBC. And Tom, he stayed quiet, too quiet. Daniel, watching the broadcast at home, leaned over. He's not going to say a word, is he? Karoline shook her head. He already said, enough on paper. Hollywood reacts. The shockwaves didn't stop at political circles. Hollywood, glittery, guarded, famously silent, shook. The Gibson 19 file was real. Studio insiders leaked memos confirming Tom's cancellation wasn't scheduling, it was branding. Too rural, too red, read one assistant's note. Then came the unexpected twist. Keanu Reeves broke Hollywood's code of silence. On Twitter, he posted, "I was invited to the same 2019 veterans event. I attended. Tom didn't. I saw the disappointment on those faces. Karoline Leavitt spoke the truth. Veterans deserve better than being forgotten for optics." Boom! The tweet hit 5 million views in hours. Others followed. A variety source. We've all seen Cruise skip events that don't benefit his brand. A producer tweeted, "The arrogance of mocking a Marine's family, then suing them." A liberal columnist? You don't have to like her politics to see what's right. Karoline stayed silent, no gloating. When asked about Keanu's statement, she simply said, "That took courage. I respect it deeply." Tom's team grew frantic. "We need a counter-narrative," his publicist urged. "No," Tom growled. "We need this to die." But it was too late. Even late-night comics joked. Tom Cruise challenged a Marine's wife and got knocked out by a flash drive. Daniel, watching quietly from their kitchen, smiled faintly. "Did you ever think Keanu Reeves would back you up?" Karoline smirked. "I was hoping for Clint Eastwood, but I'll take it." Oh, the smear campaign fails. Then came the anonymous hit piece. Is Karoline Leavitt really the patriot she claims to be? Vague claims of staff mistreatment, whispers of internal conflict. By noon, 4 blogs picked it up. By evening, Leavitt lies. Trended, but this time, people didn't buy it. Karoline wasn't shocked. She knew how the machine worked. When you couldn't win on stage, you pulled strings in the dark. Daniel handed her the phone. "You want to respond?" She shook her head. "Not yet. I want him to think it's working." What Tom didn't know? Karoline had prepared for this weeks ago. She'd compiled employee satisfaction surveys, staff exit interviews, video clips of veterans she'd helped, never publicized until now. She dropped it all in one post on X. Some people fight in the open, others fight in the shadows. I prefer receipts. Attached was a 2-minute montage. Veterans hugging her, staffers praising her leadership, a retired general's statement. Karoline Leavitt shows more honor in her pinky than most in an entire career. It hit 10 million views in 6 hours. Levitt Lies became Sue Levitt Leads. Even Keanu reposted, "This is integrity." Tom's inner circle panicked. His lawyer, "She's built a legal fortress. We can't proceed." His PR rep, "She's not just fighting back, she's winning hearts. You've made her bigger." Tom stared at the screen, watching her video loop. He'd once been the star who made America believe in heroes. Now, America had a new one, and she didn't need a box office. The quiet victory. 2 days later, Tom's legal team quietly dropped the defamation threat. No statement, no apology, just silence. But for Karoline, it wasn't enough to win quietly. She had one more thing to say. At the Veterans Honor Summit in Virginia, she stepped onto the podium in a navy blazer, silver cross gleaming. The crowd fell silent, expecting a victory jab at Hollywood. Instead, she said, "A few weeks ago, someone with power mocked the man I love, not just his service, but the values that define him. When we stood up, we weren't fighting for politics or applause. We were fighting for what too many are afraid to defend: honor, faith, respect." This isn't about Tom Cruise. It never was. It's about every family belittled for their beliefs, every wife told she's too loud, every veteran forgotten when cameras stop rolling. I didn't win because I had more followers. I won because I refused to be silent. The audience rose to their feet. Even press wiped their eyes. Daniel stood at the stage's edge, arms folded, watching his wife stand taller than ever. Keanu's letter was read aloud. "Courage isn't always bullets or battlefields. Sometimes it's standing up with truth when the spotlight tries to blind you." That night, headlines weren't about Tom. They were about Karoline's message. From lawsuit to leadership. How one press secretary outshined Hollywood. Not just a voice for Trump, a voice for millions. Back home, Karoline placed the Gibson 19 flash drive in a drawer, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. "I didn't win because I'm perfect," she told Daniel. "I won because I stood when others sat." Some think fame protects you, but today truth spoke louder than Hollywood's loudest voice. Karoline didn't just fight back, she rewrote the script. Final note. This story shook the world because truth defeated ego. If this moved you, imagine what's next. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because no spotlight is too bright for truth. This is Surprising Stories, where every voice matters. See you in the next one.